In the bustling heart of a sun-drenched village nestled between red clay hills and whispering baobab trees, there stood a salon unlike any other. Women from neighboring towns traveled hours on foot just to sit in its chairs, and not for the style alone, but for the stories, the wisdom, and the curious rule that no mirror was ever allowed inside. Not one. Now, imagine a salon without mirrors. Strange, isn't it? What kind of hairdresser doesn't let her customers see their own reflection? Some say she feared mirrors. Others claimed she had once seen something in one that changed her forever. But the truth, as you're about to hear, is far deeper, and far more rooted in the spirit of the ancestors. This is the tale of Mama Nalo, the woman who braided not just hair, but the very fate of those who entered her salon. Long ago, in the village of Zubari, women were known for their regal beauty and vibrant hair, crowned with patterns of wisdom passed down like lullabies. At the center of this beauty stood Mama Nalo, a woman of great stature and warm, honey-thick laughter. She was not born in Zubari but came there as a young widow, carrying nothing but a woven basket of combs, herbs, and ancestral secrets. Mama Nalo quickly became beloved. Her hands moved like water, soft but powerful, turning dull strands into elegant sculptures. Her salon was a small hut with a roof of thatch, walls lined with calabash gourds filled with oils and leaves, and the scent of lemongrass and coconut always in the air. But most curious of all, there were no mirrors. Not a shard, not a sliver. When asked why, she would only smile and say, "A woman must feel her beauty, not chase it with her eyes." Many laughed, but none could deny that after leaving her salon, even the most insecure girl walked taller, more certain, as if she had been braided not just with style, but with purpose. Now, the villagers respected Mama Nolo's rule, even if they didn't understand it. But as time went on, one girl dared to challenge it. Her name was Akua. Akua was the daughter of the village seamstress and the blacksmith. Bright as a diamond, sharp as a drumbeat, and with a curiosity as wide as the Kalahari. She was known for asking too many questions and finishing others' proverbs. Where others would nod, Akua would prod. At 16, Akua decided she would visit Mama Nolo's salon for the first time. Her mother, Ama, warned her to behave respectfully. "Do not question her ways," Ama said, sewing fabric as she spoke. Mama Nalo is not just a hairdresser. She sees things. Sees things? Akua asked. But there are no mirrors. Her mother paused, lips pursed. Exactly. But Akua's mind was made up. That morning, she wore her finest orange and blue bubu, the one her mother saved for harvest festivals. She walked into Mama Nolo's salon with a mixture of excitement and doubt. The hut was full of women, each seated on low stools, some laughing, others quiet in reflection. A drum played softly in the background, and the scent of burning shea filled the air. Mama Nalo turned toward her, beads clicking around her neck. Her eyes were soft but searching. "You are Ama's daughter," she said, not as a question, but as a statement. Akua nodded. "Yes, Mama. And you wish to see yourself?" The question struck Akua off guard. Yes. I mean, after you finish. I want to see what you've done." Mama Nalo hummed, her hands resting on Akua's shoulders. "If I do well, your soul will know. But your eyes, they can lie." Akua frowned. "Eyes don't lie." "Oh, child," Mama Nalo chuckled. "Then you have never seen someone look beautiful and still feel like dust inside." She led Akua to the stool. Gently, she began to part her hair. For hours, Mama Nalo worked in silence, save for the occasional proverb. "The head is not just for a crown, it holds the storm and the sun," she murmured. Akua felt her hands, warm like a grandmother's hug, tugging and twisting, feeding stories into each braid. Though tempted to speak, she found herself strangely still, wrapped in a kind of peace she hadn't known she was missing. But when it was done, Akua broke the spell. "Mama," she said softly, "please let me see it." The room grew quiet. The other women turned, eyes wide. Mama Nalo looked into her eyes, searching. Then she stood, disappearing behind a red curtain. Moments later, she returned, not with a mirror, but with a bowl of water. She set it before Akua. "If you must see," she said, "see in what the earth provides." Akua peered in. The water shimmered, revealing not just her face, but something deeper. Her braids were beautiful, yes, woven into a crown with cowrie shells and golden threads, but what startled her was her eyes. They looked different. Stronger. Older. Suddenly, her face began to shift. She saw herself laughing, then crying, then standing alone on a cliff, then surrounded by children. Then it faded. She gasped, jerking away from the bowl. What did I just see?" Mama Nalo only smiled. "You saw your reflection not as the world shows it, but as your spirit carries it. The mirror reveals the surface. But water knows what you're made of." Akua was silent. Something inside her shifted. From that day on, she never asked for a mirror again. And though she would go on to become a teacher, a mother, and a leader in her own right, she often spoke of that day in Mama Nolo's salon, not for the hairstyle, but for the awakening. Years passed like migrating birds, each season adding a feather of wisdom to Akua's spirit. She had become a woman of grace, respected, well-spoken, and known across the villages for her mind as much as her beauty. But with time also came challenge, and in the quiet corners of her life, something had begun to stir, an old itch for answers, a forgotten reflection, a memory rippling just beneath the surface. Mama Nolo's lesson had lived in her bones for years, guiding her like a lantern through the dark. But no lesson remains untested. And one rainy season, as thunder cracked open the sky like a drum summoning the spirits, Akua came face to face with a reflection far more dangerous than anything a mirror could show. Akua had returned to Zubari after many years away. She had studied in the city, taught at the university, and married a quiet, patient man named Kojo. Together, they had one daughter, little Zina, with curious eyes and stubborn questions, just like her mother once had. Zina was 8 when the rains began that year. Heavy, endless rains that soaked the earth and turned the roads to rivers. The village elders said it was the ancestors weeping. Others said it was just the season. But Mama Nolo knew better. She was older now. Her hands slower. Her laugh quieter. Her salon, still without mirrors, stood firm, though vines crept up its walls like time itself trying to reclaim it. Akua brought Zina to her for her first braid. As they entered, Zina whispered, "Mama, why are there no mirrors?" Akua smiled, almost sadly. "Because not all truths need eyes to see." Zina, like her mother once had, frowned at the answer. Inside, the air was warm and spiced with old herbs. Mama Nalo greeted them with open arms, her eyes lighting up at the sight of Akua. "You have grown, child," she said. "You wear your strength like gold." "And you," Akua replied, hugging her, "still hold secrets in your silence." Mama Nolo chuckled but said nothing. Zina sat down eagerly, and Mama Nolo began her work. But something felt different. Outside, the rain beat down with a strange rhythm, almost like footsteps. And inside, the candlelight flickered though no breeze entered. As Mama Nalo twisted Zina's hair into gentle coils, she spoke low, almost to herself. "This rain, it is not just weather." Akua turned. "What do you mean?" Mama Nolo's fingers paused. "There is something returning. Something old. Something you must face." Akua's chest tightened. "Me?" Mama Nalo nodded slowly. "Do you remember the bowl of water?" Of course she did. That moment had lived in her dreams for years. You saw not only what you were, but what could be. But you turned away before it finished. I was afraid. Mama Nolo's gaze pierced her. And fear leaves doors open. That night, Akua could not sleep. Thunder rattled the walls. Zina was curled up on a mat, fast asleep, her hair now beautifully braided. Kojo snored softly. But Akua's mind was elsewhere. She got up and stepped outside into the rain. The village was dark, save for the occasional flicker of lightning revealing wet rooftops and swaying trees. But as she walked, something caught her eye. A glint. A shimmer. Behind an abandoned market stall, half buried in mud, was something reflecting the lightning. She approached. It was a mirror. Cracked at one corner. Mud splattered. But whole enough to reflect. Her heart pounded. Where had this come from? There were no mirrors in the village, not since Mama Nalo had come. Many had followed her example. Mirrors were seen as frivolous now, even dangerous by some. Akua hesitated. But curiosity, that old whisper, reached for her hand. She wiped the surface and looked in. At first, only her face. Then, movement behind her. She turned. Nothing. Back to the mirror, and her face began to change. Her eyes darkened. Her lips frowned. Wrinkles formed that did not exist. Her reflection stared at her coldly, accusingly. She stumbled back. Then the voice came. You abandoned what you could have become. Akua froze. The voice came not from the mirror, but from inside her own head. You saw the truth, but only half. Now the other half returns. She screamed and ran. The next morning, Akua returned to Mama Nolo's salon. She looked pale. Haunted. Mama Nalo was waiting, as though she had known she'd come. I saw it, Akua said. A mirror. Did you look? The old woman asked. Akua nodded, ashamed. Then it has begun, Mama Nalo said. What is it? Akua asked. What did I see? Mama Nalo sat her down, this time not as a hairdresser, but as a griot, a keeper of truths. There is a belief, she began, older than any tribe. That every woman carries two spirits, the one she shows, and the one she hides. The mirror does not show who you are, it shows who you fear you are. And when you stare long enough, you feed that fear. You let it grow. Akua swallowed hard. So what do I do? You must finish what you started long ago. Not with a mirror, but with water. You must look again, but this time, until the end. That afternoon, Mama Nolo prepared the bowl again. She filled it not just with water, but with crushed kola nut, a whisper of charcoal, and a drop of red palm oil. To call the spirit, she said. Akua knelt before it. Zina and Kojo watched silently. The water shimmered. Her reflection appeared. Again it began to change, showing pain, age, regret. But she did not look away this time. She whispered, I see you. The image calmed. Shifted. Now she saw herself, comforting someone. Teaching. Holding her daughter. Then, leading. Speaking before a crowd. A village celebrating. Peace. Then it faded. Akua breathed deeply. Tears streamed down her face. Not of fear, but of release. That night, the rain stopped. The wind grew soft. And in the village of Zubari, the women danced again. Akua had faced not a demon, but a doubt. And in doing so, she had woven herself whole. Mama Nolo smiled as she watched from her salon. She knew her time was nearing an end, but her work was done. And Akua. She began to braid not just hair, but futures. She never allowed mirrors in her salon either. Because, as she now knew, the spirit needs no glass to shine. But this tale is not yet complete. For one mirror still remained, waiting, watching. And one child, curious, bold, and stubborn, was ready to ask questions of her own. Some stories do not end, they shift, they evolve, like rivers changing course through the land. What began with Akua did not end with her. For in the heart of every woman is a story passed down like braided hair, from scalp to strand, from mother to daughter. And though the rains had ended and peace had returned, that reflection, was not gone. It had simply been waiting for a new pair of eyes. And Zina. She had eyes that did not blink, a mind that did not settle, and a spirit that refused to follow quietly. Zina grew quickly, as bright children often do. Her questions, once curious, turned sharp. She read, she wondered, and she listened when adults thought she wasn't listening. Especially to the old tales. One day, she asked her mother, "Did you really speak to your own reflection?" Akua paused. She had never told the full story, not to Zina. Not yet. Why do you want to know? Zina shrugged. Because I saw it. Akua's hands went cold. So what? The mirror behind the old market stall. I didn't touch it. But it looked like it was breathing. Akua stood abruptly. You must never go there again, Zina. But why? Because some reflections don't show you, they take you. Zina stared at her mother with wide, defiant eyes. You looked. Akua hesitated. And I paid the price. That night, Zina did not sleep. She stared out the window toward the old market, her breath fogging the glass. She wasn't afraid. She was cold. Weeks passed. The village bustled with preparations for the festival of fertile ground, a time when blessings were asked for children, crops, and clear skies. Zina's school closed for the week, and Akua was busy braiding and styling women for the event. One morning, as the sky still glowed with early sun, Zina crept out of the compound with a small satchel, a stone talisman from her grandmother, and a stubborn sense of purpose. She walked alone to the old market. The mirror was still there. But now it stood upright, propped against a cracked wall, its edges wrapped in creeping vines. It looked almost like a gate. She stepped forward. In the reflection, she saw not just herself, but another version. Not darker, not monstrous. Just different. Older. Wiser. Her braids longer. Her eyes full of things she hadn't yet learned. The reflection lifted a hand. Zina did too. Then the reflection spoke. Why do you seek what your mother fears? Zina startled. Her lips hadn't moved. But the voice echoed in her skull like thunder in a god. Because I want to understand, she whispered. The reflection smiled. Then stepped through. And just like that, the glass shimmered like water, and Zina stepped into the mirror. She found herself in a world both strange and familiar. It was Zubari, but not. The houses were made of ash and gold. The sky glowed violet. The trees whispered in languages they hadn't used in centuries. And the people, they had no shadows. Zina walked slowly. No one noticed her. Then she saw herself, or rather her other self. The one from the mirror. She was older, yes, but powerful. She stood in the village square, speaking, and people listened. Even the elders. Zina approached. The older version turned, already expecting her. Welcome, little one. Is this real? Zina asked. It is possible, the older Zina said. This is one path. But to walk it, you must face what holds you back. I'm not afraid, Zina said quickly. The older self smiled sadly. Then you haven't looked deep enough. The ground trembled. Suddenly, Zina was alone. The village faded. Darkness rushed in. And in that darkness, a mirror appeared. But this time, it showed not her future, but her fear. Her mother, crying. The salon, burning. Herself, silent, voiceless, as the village turned away. No, she shouted. But the images only grew stronger. You will disappoint her, a voice hissed. You will fail. You are too bold. Too stubborn. Too much. Zina fell to her knees. And in the center of the mirror, a crack began to form. Then, footsteps. Soft but certain. Akua. She walked out of the dark, her face calm, her hands open. You are enough, Zina, she said. But I don't want to become something terrible, Zina whispered. You won't, Akua said. Not if you know yourself. How? By remembering who you are before the world told you otherwise. Zina closed her eyes. She breathed. When she opened them, the mirror was whole again. And in it, she saw herself, not perfect, not fearless, but real. And the fear faded. She awoke in her own bed. The morning sun poured through the window. Kojo was humming in the courtyard. Akua was preparing breakfast. Good morning, her mother said gently. Zina stared. Was it a dream, she asked. Akua looked into her eyes. You tell me. Zina smiled faintly. I saw her, me. The other me. And she was strong. But lonely. Akua nodded. Strength without grounding is wind without wings. Zina hugged her mother tightly. I want to learn. From you. About the water. The spirits. The truth. Akua smiled. And so, under Mama Nolo's fading watch, and the rising sun of a new season, Zina began her journey. Not as a child chasing her mother's shadow, but as a new weaver of story and spirit. And yes, she would one day open a salon of her own. Without mirrors. Because in the house of women, the spirit is reflected not in glass, but in love, in memory, and in story. So my lovely friends, now, if you ever wander to the village of Zubari, you may hear laughter drifting from a small salon without a single mirror on the wall. Inside, women sit and speak, braiding not just hair, but truth, heritage, and healing. You may meet a girl with fire in her eyes and wisdom in her voice. And if you ask her why there are no mirrors, she may smile and say, because we see each other better this way. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand. Because some reflections do not come from glass. They come from courage. And courage is always beautiful. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, as the stories are just about to get better.